Hi guys, I know that this has been so long since the last time I experienced this interaction with you. Today's video is about those people who have constant anticipation of abandonment, who feel that they would be abandoned in a close, intimate connection. Now, these could be romantic attachments, these could be friendships where you feel that you are putting in far more than the other person is. So, basically, where you feel your need for mutuality is not getting met. And so, if you are one of those people who feel that, I do not feel emotionally safe in my relationships and I do not feel deeply secure in my relationships. This is a video for you. Take a nice deep breath, connect with yourself. Just be aware of this very moment, of how it feels, of the colors and senses around you. Because a lot of times when we are living in our minds, in our psychological reality, we kind of become zoned out and disconnected with the actual physical experience of being alive. And if you have ever experienced my work, my work interacts or creates a certain center between awareness practice, emotional intelligence, and self love. So just be aware with me as we interact by taking a nice deep breath again. So now usually whenever we have, for any of my clients, and it's amazing how many clients I meet every single week who are talking to me about abandonment trauma, and you would see this, that any of us who has a wound or a past traumatic memory associated with an experience where we felt that we were left, where we were abandoned, anything that would match that primary wound would trigger in us experiences or feelings of anxiety. So imagine that if I, as a 3-year-old girl, came back from school and I was sleeping, and my mother told me that, when you wake up, we would go together to the marketplace. And when I woke up, what I realized was that I was alone, all alone in my home, and I was locked from outside, and my mother wasn't around for a couple of hours. So as a little girl, I understood that experience as being abandoned by a primary caretaker. That here is my mother who I love, who loves me back, but she is capable of abandoning me. So, as a girl who is unconscious and is trying to process these very difficult feelings, she can create a meaning out of this, that people who we love or people who we are dependent on can abandon us, or love is painful, or love can hurt, or love brings uncertainty. So, these are the meanings and the stories that we might end up attaching to that primary experience of pain, because the mind had to in some ways go through it, and we unconsciously might create stories around it. So that little girl might create coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms around this fear. So she might become somebody who wants to become a perfect person, who does everything in an ideal way so that she is always loved and so that nobody ever complains to her about anything. And this is her unconscious defense mechanism to avoid abandonment. However, what I want to really do for you right now is to turn this psychological paradigm and kind of tell you something that is at the core of abandonment. And this might be a surprise for a lot of people, but I'm very grateful that this has come alive for me through my client interactions, and it is so clear. And once you understand this, you would also have an opportunity to change things in a beautiful way for yourself. Now, the center core truth of this all is that you can never be abandoned. The only person that can abandon you is you. So the only truth is self-abandonment. And let me tell you how. So imagine that I am somebody who has fear of being abandoned, and I come close to a guy in a relationship, and I feel anxious and insecure, and I feel that, this person would leave me, and if I have that fear again and again. And so, in some ways, what would I do? I would try and overcompensate in the relationship. I would try to give a lot. I would try to ensure that this person's needs are met, even sometimes at the cost of my own needs and feelings. So, if I am in a relationship where I'm constantly trying to ensure that the person does not leave me, meaning my actions come from fear, then I would often be destroying healthy boundaries of taking care of my feelings and needs, because I am working from a place of fear, trying to avoid separation. So, as and when I am doing anything as a defense, as an action that is coming from fear of being left, what would happen is I would be setting a norm in a relationship where the other person would learn to treat me in a way that I treat myself. So he is seeing that I often ignore my own needs and feelings to take care of his needs and feelings. And so people treat us the way we treat ourselves. So he would start treating me the way I am treating myself. So in this example, who was the first person who abandoned me? I was the person who abandoned me, because I was coming from a fear that the other person, the person external to me, would abandon me. And the result of that was that I started abandoning myself first, because I wanted to avoid that person abandoning me. Now, people, this world is a mirror. They are always mirroring to us what we need to see. So if an external person abandons me, they are in some ways mirroring that I have abandoned myself. And this is where you need to ask yourself that if you're in a relationship where you always feel insecure, where you always fear abandonment would happen, are you abandoning your own self? Are you doing things where you are not listening to your feelings and your needs? Do you know how are you feeling in this very moment? Are you in touch with your own self? And if you have worked with me, you know that I talk about internal family systems, that we are made up of several parts and several selves. So there might be a part in you that is feeling angry, and you might have been told by your culture that anger is not legitimate for a woman. So you might have buried and abandoned that part into the basement of your system, meaning the unconscious. And so every time you might feel angry, you might start doing emotional eating just for your mind, not for your body. And whenever you do actions that are emotional, that are reactional, that are psychological, it is often coming from a hidden coping mechanism or a defense mechanism. So those parts of you that have been suppressed need to be reintegrated. So meaning inviting parts of you that you were told are not good enough, are not elegant enough, are not accepted by your particular social framework, all of those parts, you kind of bring it back. You kind of rewrite the contract with yourself that, here I am, and I'm willing to accept and reintegrate and re-invite those parts of me that I might have unconsciously or consciously banished or exiled or abandoned. And as you do that, you would realize that you would have restored in yourself an authentic self-connection. So when you go living your life from that space of authentic, unconditional self-acceptance, that you are connected and you are willing to take care of you, number one, then the fear of abandonment from anyone outside totally disappears. It totally dissolves. Then there is no fear of the external ever abandoning you, because there isn't any internal fear of abandonment, because you have kind of brought yourself up close, face to face with yourself, and told yourself, I am here, and in no circumstances I can abandon you. So when you come from that solid self-connection, then there is no possibility of self-abandonment. And when there's no self-abandonment, you feel so secure in your connections, and you always know how to have healthy connection outside of you, because intrapersonal connection is primary to interpersonal connection. I hope this short video helped you in understanding your patterns about abandonment ideas. And yes, take care of yourself. And if you want to connect with me for a one-on-one session, I would put my email address below.